and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
You actually think a Vancouver Canucks, Edmonton Oilers round 2 series is going to have, with the final 2 Canadian teams in the playoffs, is going to be of anything of calm? It's already not, Tyler. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. You can subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as, oh man, what a crazy night on Friday. It came down. I thought this was going to overtime, but Pius Suter, who had all the chances in the world, finally knocked a puck in on UC Saros and came away with the amazing 1-0 victory over the Nashville Predators, eliminating the Predators in the first round playoffs and advancing to the second round. We should say hello before we get on here to Tyler and Sean. Hello, Sean. Hello, Tyler. How are things?
Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Sean. Things are good. You know, just I still have to sort of soak it up a little bit. There's going to be some more Canucks playoff hockey here this spring, and against Edmonton of all teams. Should be fun.
That's right. Get your gear on, and let's go, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be a shit show. It's going to be crazy, but I'm ready. I am ready. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the first time that the Oilers and Canucks have faced since 1992. The Oilers took that game in 6. The Oilers also played them in, I believe it was 1986. Yes. And the Oilers beat the Canucks in 3. In that time, it was the best of 5. That led to the Oilers playing the Flames for that classic Steve Smith goal, if everyone remembers.
Yes.
So we'll break that series down in a bit here. We'll get into that, but I think it's fair to go backwards and kind of wanted to spend some time not only talking about the Canucks Predator series, which is important, but also talk about the Oilers Kings series, because I do think both of these series will tell us some stories. But let's go with some takeaways from the Canucks Predators. And I just, respect to the opponent. A couple of things I want to say about the Predators. I thought Ryan O'Reilly was the best, just a beast in this series. He was by far, I thought, their best player throughout the series. I know that he didn't have a great face-off game in Game 6, but he was all over the place. I thought he was by far their best player. Philip Forsberg was good as well. Ultimately, for me, I think with Nashville's depth, I mean, there wasn't a lot of goals in this series, so I can't go away and say, look at the Canucks' dynamic scoring. But they were able to get goals at key times where I don't think the Predators didn't really have a lot of balanced. They didn't have a Pius Suter come away and get a winning goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was the lack of production from the Novak Evangelista line that was the downfall of the Preds, as well as they didn't score much on the power play. Canucks penalty kill won that series for them.
Yeah, that's my biggest one from the series too. Was the special teams. The Canucks, I think, killed 20 of 22 penalties against. So that's just not going to win you a playoff series. Nashville just they was a good battle from them, but just not as deep a team. Just top to bottom, the Canucks had more, including in goal. As it turned out, UC Soros put up a hell of an effort there in Game 6, but still ultimately fell 1-0, and it was Artur Silovs at the other end getting his first shutout to clinch a series.
Yeah, that is I think one of the big surprises was the Canucks goaltending overall, and the fact that they went to Seelofts. I think there was a lot of people, and I think there was a lot of people that were betting on the Oilers that had already plans for the conference final for the Oilers, already were preparing to play either Colorado or Dallas or Vegas. But I'll just say this: I think Artur Silovs is already a legitimate NHL goalie. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm any goalie expert, but from listening to what the mechanics of the goalie experts, it feels like Silovs has a lot of that going for him right now. And the fact that he came away with a shutout, and really, I mean, it was a 2-1 game in Game 5. He certainly could not blame him for the Game 5 loss in Vancouver. And he was pretty steady in Game 4. So I thought, Artur Silovs, I think he's a legitimate NHL goalie. That I think the Canucks
And he's got some great style too with that shirt.
Oh God! Yeah. Is that shirt for sale?
It is. It is $100 shirt from, I think, Hugo Boss.
I might go buy it. Just that might be the new jersey there. I think JT Miller wearing the shirt was hilarious.
Oh, fantastic!
Well, you think of as the series goes on and the team dynamics, and that's one that we got a glimpse at through the media, but it was reassuring, wasn't it, that there was this sort of like, okay, everything's cool here, we're going to keep it light. There wasn't this tension that I guess one of the odd things about going through this experience as a Canuck fan now is it has a different feel to it. I mean, yeah, at times, like when they lost Game 5, it's like, oh no, the weight of history and doom and gloom, they're gonna blow it. But then the way that they're playing out there, and they're killing penalties and they're blocking shots, and then they're down to their third goalie, and yet they're overcoming it. They I don't know. To me, like that by the end of Game 6, I mean, we're holding our breath, sure, but I felt more reassurance that the team actually was going to get the job done. Whereas in years past, I don't know, it didn't seem to feel as steady, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and even like I've been preaching this for a while, going back into the regular season, about how the Canucks are comfortable playing low event hockey, and that's what this series was. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was any other than the lack of actual goals there for a while. It didn't feel like it was much different from what they played in especially the latter part of the season. So I think that sort of helped for me there, because it wasn't any different. It wasn't like they weren't playing their game, and they struggled to get shots through against Nashville, which is the only issue there, is that but Nashville struggled to get shots through on the Canucks too. Like everyone made a big deal about how the Canucks were the 16th, like in terms of shots per game, they were last in the first round of the teams that played in the first round. But who was second last? It was Nashville. That was just this series. Trying to compare series to series on that is, you can do it, but it's not necessarily the best comparison, just because it's like you're one team playing another team. It's just every series has a different flavor. Every series has a different vibe. And this one was just old school, grind it out, just throwing every body part in front of the puck, including using your jock strap, as Tyler Myers did at the end of Game 6 there. It was yeah, just that's what this series was. It was a grinded out old school, so almost dead puck, early 2000s style hockey.
I didn't think it was dead puck. Sorry, Tyler. Just quickly. I know that there was a lot of people complaining about how boring this series was. I actually didn't feel it was boring. Like there were like game 3 or game 2 as an example. Didn't the Canucks have 86 shot attempts and only hit 19? It wasn't like they were waiting for a shot. It wasn't like they were playing a 1-2-1, right? It wasn't the neutral zone trap game. I mean, it was low event, but it wasn't like they were not being aggressive. It was just hard to get shots on goal.
Yeah, low events, the phrase there. I don't make too much out of the shots on goal total because they got to be on goal to count as a shot on goal, right? It's the attempts and high danger chances. Are they getting quality chances? You know, when it's a situation where everything in the direction of the net's not threatening, or you're getting it blocked, and it just doesn't seem like there's ever going to be a big chance or a good chance that arises, then that gets concerning. But throughout the series, I mean, the Canucks were imposing their game on Nashville far more often than the other way around.
Yeah, I felt that way too. I felt Roman Josi was ultimately kind of quiet in this series. Like, if I had to, I mean, we're going to be biased because we're representing the Canucks, but I thought that one of the clear differences. And I did think that as the series went on, the game plan for the Predators was wearing down Quinn Hughes, and the game plan for the Canucks was trying to wear down Roman Josi. But I thought Quinn Hughes, especially in the second half of the series, was the guy that stepped up a bit more. He didn't get a goal; he got 5 assists in the series, but I thought he was stronger than Roman Josi.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he found a way to be more impactful, especially in the offensive zone, than Josi was. Quinn Hughes was still, despite being targeted physically a lot more than he's used to, was still playing his game and still controlling the play in the offensive zone, looking to create offense. While Josi was felt a lot more neutralized for sure.
Yeah. I guess the one other, as we leave this series, I'll give you my player of the series of just from my perspective, and then I'll ask the second question. The player of the series for me may surprise you. It was Nikita Zadorov. Like, he got 2 goals in this series. He scored the first goal against in game 4. But he was just a problem throughout the entire series. Like, in terms of just his physicality, he was able to neutralize things. He laid some huge hits. He laid one on Josi for sure. I thought he was the most physically dominant player on the ice for both teams. I know Brock Besser scored more goals. I know JT Miller led the Vancouver in scoring, but for me, the player of the series was Nikita Zadorov.
That's it's a great point there. I'm going to say both with Zadorov and Lindholm. The trades are looking a lot better now, aren't they? Having those two on the team, their presence was very much felt. Zadorov, physically and just the assertiveness with his game. You talked about the hits he's laid, the couple of goals. I mean, for me, it's Brock Besser simply because he's taken his game to another level. Like in this series, like we saw a level of Brock Besser we'd not seen before. Driving the play, kind of making up for PD being, scuffling and not giving the team very much. The dog on the bone is the phrase I saw in regards to the tying goal in game 4. Just Brock really rose to the occasion and showed that he can be a clutch playoff performer, and that's very exciting.
Yeah. My player of the series has got to be Brock Besser. But the X factor of the series was Nikita Zadorov. His physicality and the whole physicality of that Canucks blue line was a major problem for the Predators. And that will also be the X factor in the upcoming series against the Oilers. If the Canucks can be that physical with the Oilers, that's going to go a long way in helping them be successful in that series. And it's just having every time they started Zadorov at home in Vancouver, you saw him just soaking it up. Like when the national anthem's going and he's just sort of coasting around and doing figure eight, just soaking it all up. Like, oh, like that. He's going to become a folk hero if the Canucks can go on a bit of a run here. Like he just the way and his quotes, and just the physicality of it, and he's got that cockiness, brashness to him as well. He brings the attitude and physicality to this team that Kevin Bieksa brought to the Canucks when he was on them. Like it just, and you need that. That is something you need. Every team needs to go deep. You need someone like that who just has that aura, because you know that they'll have that confidence regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what you also need, I think, is an ability to, frankly, get past bad calls. You know, there's breaks and adversity and the ups and downs of a playoff run is difficult sometimes for teams to manage. But so far, the Canucks seem to be, pretty steady with that. Kevin Bieksa highlighted this a number of times throughout the series. How there'd be something that happens and there's not a lot of dwelling on it with the referees, and then behind the bench, I mean, Rick talking, there's quite a few times he's doing the slow burn there, but it doesn't turn into this sort of unsettling situation where he's freaking out and then the team kind of gets thrown off its game. And the one that he made probably the most reaction to was the late call in Game 6 for a cross check. Who was it that got called?
The cross check on Lindholm.
Lindholm, yes, that's right. And even that wasn't much of a reaction. But the reaction was, I think that was probably the most surprising call of any that we had seen throughout the series. So that's important. Hopefully that can stay, because the team has responded to the whole, just calmness, resilience thing, as opposed to, making excuses for this and that didn't go their way.
And, I think just the other, I guess, the one conversation that a lot of people, had was in Game 5. It was Game 5 where he didn't challenge the first, was it the Nyquist goal, the Seelovs. And, I think a lot of people, there was a great debate about whether or not to challenge that. I think we didn't agree. I didn't think it was, I thought that Tocchet did the right thing and not challenge. You guys thought they should have, but the fact of the matter is there, agree or not, like I think Tocchet's relationship with the officiating, even through the regular season, has been very, he hasn't had that real blow up. He hasn't there's been a lot of complaining about the officiating on the Canucks social media, but he hasn't taken the bait yet.
No.
So I think
and the players haven't really either. I mean, Zadorov did kind of dip into that a little bit there after Game 5, but that's, and I was, a little concerned by that too, but, at least it's him saying it as opposed to Quinn Hughes or some bigger name on the team. Like he that was kind of it for, you're absolutely right. Like Tocchet's relationship has been helpful, but when he said after the game, he's like, I don't know what the NHL is going to do. It's 50-50. I mean, that's kind of how I felt about it too. We can look at video, and there's times in the past where it seemed pretty cut and dry, and then they come out and they give the opposite ruling, and we're going WTF. Like, so, I think it's fair
that
to
is
say,
the thing with goaltender interference.
Yeah.
It's
I think
subjective.
it's fair to say,
like
the
that's
strength of the Canucks penalty kill, that so if they lost, just kill the penalty. I get that argument. I think that's how you felt about it, Sean. But it maybe just overthought that a little bit. I think for me, the idea that doing just sort of the Hail Mary challenge is maybe what they thought it would be, and that looks a little bit desperate. But it wasn't really a Hail Mary challenge. I think there was a good argument to give it a shot.
Yeah, I think that if you look at what's getting challenged a lot now, it's offsides or missed stoppages of play, which are a lot more cut and dry. As soon as it gets into the muddy water of goaltender interference, it's a lot tougher. like I said, I still think that's goal. I still think that should be incidental contact, goal called back, because you shouldn't because Nyquist shoved his stick through, and pushed through Seelovs there. So I think that's basically ruining any chance for Seelovs to regain control of the puck. So that's why I thought they should have challenged it, and that shouldn't have counted. But it's at best you're looking at a 50-50 percentage there, a coin flip on what happens. And I don't think that's what that's what the NHL is trying to get rid of, is these 50-50 calls. They want the call on the ice to stand as much as possible when it comes to that. So
I wasn't convinced it would be overturned. Like I just wasn't convinced. I mean, I see your point, but I also saw an angle where you could argue that Zadorov beat him to it. It wasn't conclusive for me. It wasn't. So that's why I was like, let's not challenge that.
I mean, for me, it's like whether it can say it's conclusive or not is hard to say, because we don't know what criteria they're using to make that conclusion, right? But crapshoot's the word I was kicking around amongst ourselves in our group chat about that, because it does seem to be that way over the course of time. So hey, it's fun though. We can debate it now and laugh about it because it didn't cost them the series.
Because that wasn't the only one that they didn't challenge on, because they also had the one we thought was a kick.
So that
kicking motion early in the season.
That was clarified. That's not a challengeable play. That is an NHL review, and it was looked at. I mean, to me, it sure looks like a motion towards the net, but same thing. Over the last, say, 10 to 15 years, there's been some head scratching rulings on that too.
Yeah.
Over the last few years, they've gotten a lot more liberal on what is allowed. I think it's literally, as long as it's not like a very blatant kicking motion and the skate stays on the ice, they're more willing. I think they're going to allow that more, 9 times out of 10. So when I saw that, I didn't think it was blatant enough that it would get called back.
Yeah, he kicked it without kicking it is how I would describe it. He didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't use the motion, but it went off. He made it look like it went off his skate, but he kicked. If you talk to him after a few brewskis, he kicked it.
Well, so distinct kicking motion, was it did they conclude that it was like a non-distinct kicking motion? Because it sure seemed like a kicking motion, didn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, again, I think that's all gets into the subjective again, and that's where you get into trouble, because every person's version of distinct kicking motion is going to be slightly different.
Yeah. What will I feel like this is somewhat of an obvious answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What will the Oilers bring that the Predators did not?
And more scoring. Yeah. I mean, you're looking for an answer more obvious than that. I'm concerned that if the game kind of opens up into a bit of a track meet, that could be an issue for the Canucks. Like the Preds, it was just a lower scoring. Like you could win a game 1-0 against the Predators. I don't see that being realistic against Edmonton. The Canucks will have to find some more goals somewhere.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, it's the Canucks having to try and actually keep it as low events as possible going into the next round. The more high event the games get against the Oilers, the less chance the Canucks are going to have, especially with Demko out injured. As good as Seelovs has been, if Demko was healthy, I think it'd be a lot. Like you're seeing a lot of like the analytics and people saying the Oilers are the favorite team going into this, even though the Canucks are the higher seed. But I think a lot of that does come down to the fact that Demko's injured, and the Canucks are I think you're riding Sheelovs until he gives you a reason not to at this point. Yeah. But it's all going into the next series. It's all about playing low event hockey for the Canucks. The more low event hockey, the better.
Kevin, you mentioned earlier about Shilov's looking like an NHL goalie. I mean, I think at this point it's probably safe to say he's not going back to the or to the AHL next year. But we are you get a little bit of caution. We are in that I don't know if honeymoon phase is the right term to use here, but goalies initially, they can kind of burst onto the scene with not much of a book on the goalies from opposing players, and then as time goes on and there's a bigger sample size, the weaknesses that may be in his game start to show a little bit more. So hopefully that doesn't happen in the short term, and the Canucks can still win some games against Edmonton. But and they got some pretty impressive firepower over there, obviously.
Okay, so let's break down the Oilers Kings series first, and then what we're going to do is a tail of the tape. So we're going to compare these two teams, and let's see if the Oilers are really the favorites that everyone is saying that they are. From my perspective, the Kings' problem in this series was they tried to play the Oilers game. They tried to hit early. They tried to kind of go fire wagon with them, and the Oilers were you just couldn't do it. You don't have that firepower to do that. And you ended up in a couple of those games in game 1, game 3, you're down 3-0 before you even know it. And before you even have a chance to kind of get your skates tied here. And you're kind of, if you're the Kings, it's hard enough to get 3 goals, let alone being down 3-0 already. And you already have your questions in terms of goaltending already. And I don't think that this was Cam Talbot or David Rittich is necessarily the problem. I thought the Oilers had all day in front of the Kings net. They could do whatever they want. They could get a tent trailer and they just camp out in front of that Oilers crease because nobody was going to take them out. Like that was to me, that was one of the big problems. And 5-on-5, that series was actually generally quite even. But the Oilers power play, and let's not forget this, the Oilers penalty kill were the difference. The Kings did not get one power play goal in this series, and that I think ends up being the difference. You just were playing right into the Kings played right into the Oilers' hands.
Yeah, and when the game opened up too, that didn't pan out for LA either. So no, I totally agree with that analysis, and I think in the Canucks Oilers series, the special teams battle is really going to be where the series is won and lost, and we saw what happened for the Kings.
Yeah, I agree there. The Kings just didn't played the Oilers game too much in the series, and then they had the one game that they did play their game really well. They still lost that one, 1-0. So I just with the Kings are just I think the Kings have reached the point of the Leafs and with the Bruins in terms of the Oilers are in their head. I think that's part of it there.
Yeah. That's going to be a very interesting. We'll save this for another time, but the LA Kings offseason is going to be absolutely fascinating. But we'll save that for another topic. Mm-hmm. Sorry, did someone want to say something? Let's do the tail of the tape. Let's look at the position by position and although it's not necessarily, I think there's a lot of ways to look at this, but I thought position by position would be an interesting way. Let's start with goaltending. You have a guy in Stuart Skinner who, he was inconsistent in last year's playoffs. I think it's fair to say he's been more consistent in this playoff. I think he's been better. And you've got right now Arthur Seeloffs or Casey DeSmith waiting to hear on Thatcher Demko. I mean, that's ultimately the biggest X factor in the series. So is it fair to say that the Oilers have the goaltending edge?
I don't know if I'd call it a big edge, but certainly it's less of a concern for them than it once was in the past. Like Skinner looks steady right now, confident. You just see the way he carries himself in the crease, and he's square to everything. And there's nothing haphazard about it. He's swallowing up the puck. It looks a lot better than what they've had for goaltending in years past.
Yeah, I would say it is an edge to the Oilers right now, but it's not. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a big edge, and I think Sheila has shown that he can. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of of the spotlight. He's not afraid of the big moments, as evidenced last year with the World Championships at home in Latvia against the States in the bronze medal game. But and then Skinner is still as good as he has been. He's still like last year he was a question mark. So it's not like it's a rookie versus a truly like what's the word I'm trying to say? Just like a true veteran who's been established for years. That established. There we go. Like a true established starting goaltender. Like Stuart Skinner is still very young in his NHL career. So I would say an edge to the Oilers here right now based off of the fact that Demko's injured. But it's not. I don't think it's significant, even though it is it's an Oilers check mark there.
Yeah, I would give it to the Oilers just based on experience. But if Thatcher Demko gets back into the net, I think that this is entirely different. But the other thing is, I think the Oilers fans would argue they don't need Skinner to be outstanding, where I think that they would say the Canucks need Seeloffs to kind of be. Seeloffs needs to be better than Skinner because of the Oilers' offense. We'll give the goaltending to the Oilers for now. Blue line. This I think is.
I don't think that if the Canucks play the game that they can play, I don't think they need Sheelovs to be outstanding, but he needs to be at the top of his game.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Be prepared for just more kind of randomness in terms of the shot attempts and the opportunities that the Oilers might take against him. You want to move into defense? I think the Canucks have the edge on defense. I think it's just a deeper, grittier defense. But Evan Bouchard's always an impact for the Oilers. If he's having a good series, that's going to be tough.
Well, so the best defenseman in this series, without question in my mind, with all due respect to the way that Evan Bouchard has played, is Quinn Hughes, without question. I don't think anybody will argue that. Then you get the Matthias Ekholm, I guess Philip Roenick which would be the number 2. I know that Roenick has struggled, but I think that is I still would probably give a little bit of the edge to Vancouver. Go ahead, Sean.
If we're talking Ekholm versus Roenick, I think Ekholm is the better defenseman, and he's been playing better of late, anyways. Roenick's definitely been a little bit more middling, while Ekholm's taking this step. Yep. But I would say after that, I give it to the Canucks. I like Zadorov. I like Myers over Ceci and Nurse. And then I like Ian Cole and Carson Soucy over Desharnais and Kulak.
Yeah, I would say that this is probably where I think the Canucks have their biggest advantage. I think their blue line is bigger, tougher, meaner than the Oilers' blue line. I don't think that the Oilers are going to have the opportunities that they had against the LA Kings. I think it's I think Oilers. There's been a lot of talk about the social media. I think Oilers Twitter is going to lose their minds on the Canucks defense and how they're being treated. And I think that Connor McDavid is going to feel some pain in this series. If that happens, I think one of the key matchups in this series is Nikita Zadorov in front of the net versus Zach Hyman. I think it is going to be absolutely fascinating. Zach Hyman is great in front of the net, but I think Zadorov or Soucy or Myers or Cole, I was just not going to permit the Oilers forwards to do what they did against the Kings. I just don't see it. I could be wrong, but I think that is going to be one of the battles that will determine the series. But I think the biggest edge that the Canucks has is the blue line, in my mind.
Yep.
Top 6. this is probably where the Oilers have the clear advantage over the Canucks. I mean, Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl is Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman is Zach Hyman. And that being said, if Mr. Pettersson is first half Pettersson, this can get closer than what it can be. If Pettersson doesn't score in this series, I have a tough time seeing the Canucks win the series. If Pettersson does score, I think the Canucks have a better chance. But he needs to be first half Petey.
I'm going to be a little harsh and say he needs to stay on his feet too. Like, it's just so concerning to me how often he's knocked around out there. And if that's a confidence thing or he's injured and there's something off with him, that's one thing. But that can't continue to be a trend. This guy's got to bear down and be able to get through that grind of playoff hockey more than what we've seen to this point. However, on the winning goal with Suter, he made a great play there. He was on the ice instead of Miller because Miller was bagged. And he did win a battle and flip the puck behind the net. And if you watch the replay of that, when the puck goes in and the celly happens and you see Petey, it's like a whole bunch of weight came off his shoulders in that moment, even though he didn't score the goal. Hopefully that's something to build off of for the next round. Feels like finally something went right for me. That was kind of like
key matchup. Yeah.
Yeah,
but this is the key matchup for me in this series. It's the forward stars versus forward stars. You've got Canucks need Petey and his line to be good this series, and they need to be producing. They didn't last series, but they had Besser and Miller. Because I think you can nullify. The Lindholm line is going to be able to nullify at least one of those. At least battle it out with one of the top lines of the Oilers, and it comes down to what the matchup is for the other one, and as well as who gets like say the matchup against McLeod, Holloway, and Perry, or Ryan, Fogle, and Mark, and if they can capitalize on that matchup. But this is the key one. Yes, the Oilers have the edge just because it's McDavid and Draisaitl leading the way. But you also have Miller, who didn't get. We saw the Selke nominations out today, but I do think that Miller will be. People may be surprised where Miller finishes in that voting this year. So I think he should be decently high up in that voting. And then. Petey, if he's on, he can take over. He can take this series over. But he has to be on for the Canucks to have a chance in this series.
Yeah, that's for sure. I have no worries about Miller. I have no worries about Besser, but Pettersson, and that's what we have deemed the second line. Pettersson, Hoglander, Mikheyev is what worries me. So in terms of that, bottom six, I will give that to the Canucks simply because of the Garland, Lindholm, Joshua line. Like, if we have them as the third line, I don't think that the veteran experience of Corey Perry, I don't think matches up. I don't think the bottom six of the Oilers matches up with the bottom six of the Canucks. Am I missing something?
I don't know, maybe.
I would say that third line with Lindholm, I think is tough for the Oilers to match up against with the bottom six that they have. But I do think that I think the fourth line of the Oilers of Fogle, Ryan, and Janmark has the potential to be a bit of a series changer there over the Canucks fourth line, which is very quiet in that first round. And Lafferty needs to step up if the Canucks want to have an edge in that matchup.
Yeah, Lafferty was almost a non-factor throughout. Phil DiGiuseppe gave a little bit more, but the Oilers' fourth line, I would agree with that. There's potential there to get a little more out of their group.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go third line Canucks, fourth line Oilers.
Sure.
Power play. I think the Oilers power play is one of the most lethal in National Hockey League history. Like, with all due respect, what the Canucks have, it's just hard to what the Oilers do, and they do it at such a high level. I think they almost have they'll sacrifice other things to allow that power play to get themselves involved in the game. So I will give the power play edge to the Oilers.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Penalty kill, which is fascinating, I think is the Canucks. The Canucks I would give the edge to, although the Oilers did shut down the Kings power play. But the Canucks power play is going to have to produce something at, the Oilers power play versus the Canucks penalty kill. That's going to be a determining factor. I mean, the Oilers are going to get their this is, Tyler, when you go back to the idea of keeping your composure, where you're right, where the Oilers can have the Canucks lose their composure is here. Because if the Oilers get rolling on that power play, that can be a confidence killer for the Canucks to allow them to play a physical game, to be afraid of taking penalties. Because, that's the thing, right? Like,
everything becomes more magnified if in that case. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise to see more great ruling when you're getting punished on the scoreboard with the Oilers power play.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the Canucks power play versus the Oilers power play. It's the Canucks power play versus the Oilers penalty kill, and the Oilers power play versus the Canucks penalty kill. And I said that the top six is the key matchup, this is the sort of the side there, because you got the top six. Both teams have offensive power, and if one of them can shut down the other team's top players to the extent that you can in the cases of both teams, that's sort of the side story here, with the top six being the key matchup with the Canucks and Oilers.
Yeah. It's the second key, I think. Yeah. Okay. Coaching. This feels to me, and maybe I don't understand Chris Knobloch as much as other people, but when I hear Chris Knobloch talk, I feel like, this is my perception, I could be wrong, but I feel like Paul Coffey is doing a lot more coaching than Chris Knobloch is. And I think Coffey's involvement is very interesting in here. So I feel like Knobloch he comes across to me, when I listen to him in the media, it feels like he doesn't have it's clear to me he does not have the experience at this level. Where Rick Tocchet, we've talked about his composure, and we've talked about how he's handled a lot of adverse situations. And give Knobloch credit, the Oilers turned it around after a horrible first month and a half of the season. So you got to give Knobloch and that coaching staff a lot of credit, but I still would give the edge to the Canucks in terms of coaching.
Yeah, are you talking just head coach or as a staff? I mean, as a staff, the Oilers have a pretty decent staff there with Paul Coffey, as you mentioned, but definitely, like, we're talking, looks the part a little bit more whenever he's out in front of the press.
Yeah, to me he does.
But the Canucks staff has got Adam Foote and Sergei Gonchar on it too, right?
Yeah. And it's amazing how much better those teams'
and
defenses
if you want someone,
yeah.
And if you want someone who knows how to play like good fight it out playoff hockey, it's Adam Foote. So he's got that. Yeah, I think the Jack Adams nomination just it says it all there, Kev.
Yeah. X factors. To me, I guess the big obvious X factor is Thatcher Demko, but beyond that, for the Canucks, the X factor to me is going to be that Zadorov-Hyman matchup, and what Lindholm, I think Lindholm is going to be an X factor. The former Flames are my X factors. And one of the, of course, sort of biased, but not biased. Nikita Zadorov and I think Elias Lindholm and that Lindholm Joshua Garland line. I think that entire line will be an X factor to me, because if they are the difference makers that they can be offensively and defensively, and I think that this is one of the problems with the Oilers and with the analytics, and where I push back on, especially with this, the analytics giving the Oilers the favorite. Lindholm is not an analytics darling, but Lindholm is an incredibly smart hockey player for those that watch the game. And Rick Tocchet has specifically talked about Elias Lindholm's IQ on more than one occasion. So when you're looking at this from an analytics point of view and you don't see Lindholm's numbers looking pretty, but remember the IQ and the sort of the smart things that he does. He's one of the smarter players to play the game. That's why I've always been a big fan of Elias Lindholm, is because he's so smart. And if they are playing the way that they are, I think that's going to be the Canucks X factor. And the Oilers X factor to me, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has not had a great season. Like, he's been really quiet for me for most of this year. And if he's kind of like, I'm not saying he's Petey, like, don't get me wrong, but if he becomes more of last year's RNH, I think that the Oilers have a really good chance of winning this series. But I feel like he's Nugent Hopkins is sort of the X factor for me, the Oilers, and I'm going to go with the Lindholm line for the Canucks.
I mentioned it earlier with the Canucks blue line and how physical they can be. I think that's a big one, and I think the big one for the Canucks is Petey. I know it's bigger than a lot of that, but if he's on and he's producing and he can be he can control, and his line can control play a little bit more, that goes a long way. And for the Oilers, I'd say it's the Darnell Nurse Cody Ceci pairing. They've been more of they've been moved off of a little. It just depends if they're playing at the top of their level, that can swing the blue line edge to the Oilers. But if they're not, and they can be a bit of a giveaway sort of pizza delivery service for the Canucks. That's going to help the Canucks. So I think that in terms of X factors for the Oilers, I think it's that pairing. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's that pairing, because I think that pairing makes or breaks a lot of matchups for the Oilers.
Tyler?
I just think if Quinn Hughes can kick it up another notch here and really just, control the puck when the team is running into some trouble, or if he can start, doing the old classic Quinn Hughes, just coasting around across the blue line and kind of creating some chances. I mean, if he can really, in a good amount of quantity, you sort of just be Quinn Hughes and really take over the game. That's to me like the big thing I want to see. If the Oilers can kind of neutralize Quinn Hughes, that's going to be a problem.
How would the Oilers neutralize Quinn Hughes?
Well, I don't know, but that's that would be concerning if they did.
To be facetious, but like, what would their game plan be? Like, how do you neutralize Quinn Hughes?
Well, you got to be physical. I mean, you looked at Nashville; they were able to kind of wear Quinn Hughes out a little bit at times, especially on the road. Do the Oilers have that capability? I don't know, but you gotta make it difficult for Quinn out there. Get the body on them. That would be the key.
Then it's this way with any sort of puck moving defenseman. When on hard forecheck, make sure that they don't have time to look up ice, and then the big X factor with Quinn Hughes and how he takes over games is his ability to control the puck in the offensive zone. And seeing a little bit right now, like, teams are being a little more passive with him. And as soon as you be aggressive with him in the offensive zone, he makes you pay. It was Nyquist. Which goal? it was Nyquist just going in way too aggressively, and
got his ankles
I think
broken.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the game tying goal in game
That's
5.
right. Yep.
That he Nyquist got too aggressive. So I think it's just you're offensive zone. I think defense, like on the forecheck, you got to be aggressive with him. But once he's in the offensive zone, I think being aggressive is to the detriment of teams.
Yeah. That's good. Those are really good X factors. All right, who wins the series?
So we have to pick. I mean, it's a biased opinion because we're Canuck fans, but I'm always going to like my team more than I'm going to like the other team, and that's not just because the Canucks went 4-0 against Edmonton in the regular season. I mean, that 3 of those games were a really long time ago, and the one more recently there was no Connor McDavid involved, so I don't think you can factor that in very much. But I just think in terms of like just total cohesiveness as a team in all aspects, you got to like the Canucks. But, it'd be nice to get Thatcher Demko back if it gets further into the series, and it doesn't feel like that's likely.
Yeah, I think it. I can't just me being me. I cannot be sort of unbiased on this. So I say Canucks in 7, because I think if the Canucks do win, it's going to be a long series. It's gonna test my nerves. Let's just say that, no matter what happens. But I think I do think the Canucks match up well against the Oilers, though. That's the thing there. If this was just because of how the Canucks play and how they're willing to make the small plays. It's not necessarily about making the big plays. They're willing to make the small plays defensively that can relieve pressure, at least temporarily, and allow their teammates to get back in position. And I think that helps the Canucks a lot. So I think it's I just can't do it. I can't take an unbiased shot at this. I won't even try.
Yeah.
But I think if the Canucks play the way they can, regardless of who's in net, whether it's DeSmith, Shelovs, or if Demko comes back, I think they still have the ability to beat the Oilers, but it will be a long, drawn out series.
I mean, the Canucks certainly had to dig down and find another level of get it done factor and belief and whatever cliches you want to use. Coming into the postseason, I was concerned that the Canucks wouldn't have that extra level, and if they faced adversity, would they be able to withstand it? Boy, did they ever! So if that continues, then man for man, I like the Canucks' chances. But it's going to be a much different feel compared to Nashville with the Oilers and the style of play and how that all clashes throughout the series.
I think the Oilers are going to come into this series really angry and with a real huge chip on their shoulder that they were swept against the Canucks. Doesn't matter.
Just like they were supposed to come into the regular season with a chip on their shoulders, and after losing to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, that can go for you against you though as well, right? That chip on your shoulder. I mean, I think you even we'll get touch into this a little bit earlier, but I think the Kings came in with a chip on their shoulder against the Oilers and it didn't work out. And I would argue that the Leafs went in with a chip on their shoulder against the Boston Bruins and it didn't work out. However, the Colorado Avalanche and Cale Makar not getting a lot of Norris contention said, fuck you, and kicked the Winnipeg Jets ass. So it does depend, right? It will depend.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that the Avs had that chip on their shoulder. They're just that good. And it wasn't necessarily about that. It's just they also have that next level of, well, it's the playoffs. Let's go.
Yeah, when Alexander Gorgiev turned his goaltending around too, that really also helped, but for sure. But I also think that the Oilers are going to get punished for their start. And I look at this, I think you're right. I think the Canucks match up so well against the Oilers. I think that this is a really difficult matchup for the Oilers. And yes, the top end, they're fine. But I think in the bottom end, I think this is where I think the Oilers' horrendous offseason is going to come back and bite them in the butt. They signed Connor Brown, who's not playing games. They brought in Anna Henrique, who I think has been semi-effective. He's been fine, not great. I don't think the Oilers have the depth to take this to 7. I think the Canucks will do this. I think the Canucks are going to wrap this series up in Rogers Place. The series will be in a Rogers arena, but
yes, some kind of a Rogers-sponsored sports entertainment venue. Yes.
It will be the Canucks in 6. I really think that I've like as the season has went on, I felt that the Canucks have been the better team than the Oilers all year, and I don't think that changes in the playoffs. I think the Canucks will wrap this up in 6, and you could argue that I'm Canuck bias or not. I just don't think the Oilers are as good as a lot of the experts are telling us. I really don't. I don't.
It'll be kind of fascinating a little bit to see how the Eastern media cover this series. One thing with the Canucks playing the Predators, they got on in some earlier time slots, probably got a little more attention because of that, and I think they've really impressed a lot of people. So, God help us if it goes 7 games. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I do have one question before we really move on and all that. But who's going to be more pissy during this series, Leon or JT?
Leon, I think. Yeah. Good one. Why are you so pissy, Matheson? Oh boy.
JT.
I joke that, but I think it is Leon. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Miller can be a bit pissy, but I think he's learning. He's learning that there's a time and a place for that. And like the fact that he twice this season he's made moves off the ice or like outside of games to help to bring levity to the situation. With the Garland, was it 800 games or 900 game or 800 whatever, how many games it was, 800 game shirt, and then you have the Shilov's shirt during practice. That's something that like I don't think who brings the levity in the Oilers dressing room.
Nobody probably.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
It seems like a very serious. I mean, they've, it's a very serious dressing room. I do have one more question after we're done with this one, but yeah, I think. I mean, that's another fact. Miller-Draisaitl is going to be an absolutely fascinating matchup in and of itself, right? Like, just those two are such a different level of intense. But I think Draisaitl is going to be one that's going to be more pissy. Here's my question: what is how effective is Evander Kane going to be in this series? We didn't even bring him up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we talked about an X factor. He could definitely be an X factor for the Oilers. Like he has the ability, but he's been so quiet and just almost a non-factor for the majority of this season. Wasn't he a healthy scratch at some point for multiple points this season?
I don't remember.
His play without the puck has just been horrendous this year too. So I don't know if he shows up. Yeah, that's definitely gonna make things a lot more difficult for the Canucks just with his the bite to his game.
All I remember is this is what I remember about Evander Kane. I will always go back to this. He at the Heritage Classic, he was yapping up a storm at the Calgary Flames, and nobody's going to do anything. You're not going to do anything. And then the next game they played the Canucks, and Dakota Joshua walked up to him and said, "Evander, I would like to do something. I will do something about it." And Evander Kane turned suddenly very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Well, you got
that's
Joshua, you've got Lafferty, you've got Zadorov, all who are going to be willing to get physical with him, let alone JT Miller, or Carson Soucy. You've got Corey Perry and Evander Kane, who can be absolute pains in the asses on opposing teams. You got to find a way to you got to find a way to just make sure that you don't wake him up in terms of Evander Kane.
Yeah, keep him quiet for sure.
Play him hard, but don't poke the bear there.
Yeah. Don't do what Matthew Tkachuk did a couple years ago. He probably poked the bear a little bit too much. It got too personal with him.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think that's also why I think the Canucks match up well. Is like they play hard, but they play smart, and they don't actually, outside of Zadorov, I think they don't necessarily have that that player who's going to poke the bear the way Tkachuk did, the way other players will.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an absolutely fun series, and it's a fresh series too, and it's been a long time since the two teams have played. So I think, it's the Canadian, whatever Canada's represented, whatever. Who the fuck cares about that?
Oh, let's not get into that.
It's going to be a great series.
As I said, Canucks fans don't give a shit about being Canada's team. After 2011, when that whole debacle happened, we don't care. You can cheer for whatever other Canadian team you want.
Yeah.
Vancouver is Vancouver's team. Vancouver are the Canucks fans' teams, and that's all that fucking matters.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple quick hits here. The arena environment and like that dynamic in this series when we got two Western Canadian fan bases. I will say, I mean, if there's one team that's under pressure in this series, it's Edmonton. I mean, they're expected to, with their team, be contending for the Stanley Cup. The Canucks not supposed to be here, those kinds of things. I think the fan energy in Vancouver has just been great. With the Oilers, could it get a little tense if things are not going well? Those are all going to be fun things to see as the series unfolds.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I will say this right now. Rogers Arena, not Rogers Place, Rogers Arena. Vancouver fans, show up and show Edmonton how it's done to sing the anthem. We did it first. We did it before you guys. Remember that.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. I guess let's address poor Devin. Not here. I almost want to give him a hug, the poor guy, but have to talk about Toronto, Boston. Hey, I said Toronto would come back and tie it, and I did predict Toronto would win it, and I was wrong because Mitch Marner
You jinxed it, Kevin. You jinxed it.
I almost didn't jinx it, though. I think if Leaf fans had anyone more to blame, it was probably either A, Ilya Samsonov, or B, Mitch Marner on that horrendous, just like turn right and realize that there's a player beside you here. Come on, man. Like, this is overtime. Like, attention to detail, anybody? Like, really the whole team, quite frankly. I mean, it's easy to blame Marner and Samsonov.
Didn't they get caught? That was a bit of a tough spot for Marner to be in on just coming off the ice, on the ice after a change. That pass up there by Lindholm, that bank pass up, brilliant. Like, I think I would give that pass and then the Pasternak play, like speeding in and then the move, more of a credit there versus any sort of bad play by Samsonov or Marner there. I think it's just more of a good play more than a bad read or anything like that. Because Samsonov was in no man's land after that. Like, he had no chance. The only chance he had was Pastrnak fumbling the puck.
I mean, Kelly Rudy was pretty critical after the game about how Samsonov played that dump, and I mean, he really had to have that read right away and make the right call right away. There was because there wasn't much time, and he just seemed to get caught sort of flat-footed there. And then once you've made the decision too late, you're screwed, and that's what happened to him. It's too bad because Samsonov had a pretty good game otherwise. I just want to say about Sheldon Keefe, like, I mean, how can that guy come back? Like, honestly, like, there's nobody's following him, are they?
Especially after that.
I just don't think he's instilling any confidence in anybody behind that bench.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, the thing that he said is the Leafs. One of the quotes last night that was floated around social media is, people know how to beat the Boston's a structured team and they know how to beat the Leafs. Well, Mr. Keefe, you're part of the problem. Aren't you part of the problem that this team isn't structured? Like,
and he never takes accountability for for his, whatever flaws in his game plan or inadequate coaching or whatever. That's the thing. Like, it doesn't project strength as a leader. I don't know. Keefe's not the answer there, but there's bigger issues for the Leafs that that can be debated when this has settled for a while.
Well, go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kev.
Well, here to me, the big question, I guess, question one is Sheldon Keefe. Question two will be Mitch Marner. We'll address that in a second, but I think ultimately, I don't have because I'm playing hurt. I'm more on water than Kool-Aid, and I know that I've been known to drink Brad Treliving Kool-Aid. But if I'm a Leafs fan, I have to ask some questions about both Brendan Shanahan and Brad Treliving. You talk about a guy that needed to manage up. I don't know if Treliving has yet, and it is his first year. And he's really running Kyle Dubas's team right now for the most part. He hasn't made that major move. I mean, he signed Matthews. He signed Nylander. He tried to make the Zadorov Tanev move with Calgary. But the Shanahan plan and Brad Treliving, I think, are going to be very interesting questions in the offseason.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the Shanahan question, really, more than anything else. Because if you're keeping Shanahan, he's not moving off of Treliving. If you move on from Shanahan, then Treliving becomes a question.
Yeah.
And it's also at some point, yes, you want to stick to the plan, but at some point you need to take a look at it and say, this isn't working. You've put together good regular season, but this isn't like the Leafs are going out and winning the division every year.
Yeah, they're finishing second.
They didn't have home ice in this series.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to change the plan. I think it's time to change the core. I think it's time to make a big decision on a core player here. Something that they've been so reluctant to do, or whether it was Lamoriello or Dubas or now Treliving. I don't think Keefe comes back. It's only a 2-year extension that he signed that kicks in next year, so it's not that detriment there. And it's also MLSE who needs to. It's not like they're short for cash, but something drastic needs to happen out of it, and multiple big names need to be moved out, whether it's players, coaches, management, to just at least send a message here. And yeah, I think I actually liked what Treliving did for the most part this past offseason, bringing in Max Domi, bringing in Tyler Bertuzzi, bringing in some snarl, bringing in some truculence. But it just Marner was again invisible for most of the series again. Keefe you still have questions about the coaching. I think I think I saw someone talk about how, like, if Dubas was still there, they would have fired Keefe, and they would have. That's such a tough, like, sort of comparison to make. You've already, like, Dubas was out. You've already had a massive change to the organization in bringing in a new GM. Are you really going to bring in a new coach with this team? That's a very but Britt, having to go to a new GM's was a bold decision. Having to go wipe the slate clean and go new management and new coach would have been even more bold. And like I say, for the most part, I liked what Treliving did. The dabbles around the edges, again, Domi and Bertuzzi specifically, I think fit what they were doing. He didn't hit on everything, but I don't think he hampered the team long term by the ones that didn't hit.
Yeah.
So, because I know Dylan's bringing up Klingberg, but that was a 1 year basically show me deal that didn't work out, and they Robert Island him anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, they didn't bring anybody out to they didn't sign anybody completely long term. Like there's Domi's a UFA, Bertuzzi's a UFA, so that's good. Who wants Mitch Marner? Like, I know everybody's saying this is the last shift of Mitch Marner and he's done. I just don't know who's going to take him.
Marner needs out of Toronto. He is. I'll tell you this right now. The Selke voters got the wrong leaf in that vote. It should have been Marner. He seems to just when it comes to playoffs, it's in Toronto, it just isn't working. And you know who will want Marner? In case he brings this up in the chat, it's Dubas.
Yeah.
Dubas, I could see him taking a swing there. They're gonna have to get creative with the cap, but I could see it happening.
What are you what are you taking back from Pittsburgh though? Like, I mean, I think that there are teams. Just thinking about it, I think Pittsburgh. I think maybe the Islanders. I think Lou may want to take a shot at Marner. The Islanders need scoring. That seems to fit. I think I would throw maybe the Utah whatchamacallits. I think they'll need a face of the franchise, and Marner will be the face of the franchise for sure.
The big issue with any Marner trade, though, is convincing Marner of the destination. He has a full no move clause.
I think at this point he's probably
when they made the yeah, it's just where he goes. He's going to control where he goes. And this was why I said that they needed to make the decision on Marner and make the move last season. They needed to make that move before the no move clause, Marner's no move clause kicked in, because now you're hampered. Nylander has a no move clause, just signed a new deal. Matthews has a no move clause, just signed a new deal. Riley has a no move clause, signed a year ago. They're all long-term deals except for Matthews. And now you've got Marner, who's got 1 year left and a no move clause. You hampered yourself. That's if there's anything that would have potentially, I would say, is my biggest question mark on what Brad did was have that handling on that. But it was also, you're in the deep end, Brad. You just you signed up to be the Leafs GM. You're in the deep end. You have to make a decision now. Like, it's tough. But
it would have been
selling Marner on Pittsburgh, I think, is easy. You've got Crosby there. You've got Malkin there. Like, those guys are going to be there no matter what. There are players that they can move. They can have, like, Raquel, $5 million. Riley Smith, $5 million. Bring back Michael Bunting, $4.5 million. There's players who have cap that they can move out to make this work. So I do wonder if that's the destination there.
That makes sense. There's a relationship there. Yeah, I mean, there's still. I still think the Leafs need to fix that blue line. I think it's old and a little stale. I think Joseph Woll is a legitimate goaltender. I mean, you wonder if. I mean, I think
He
Brad
needs
is
to
going to
stay
do all.
healthy.
He does need to stay healthy. I mean, I think Toronto will probably call Craig Conroy about Jacob Markstrom. I think that there will be at least a phone call. Whether that happens, who knows? He'll be in on Tanev and Zadorov in the off season. But yeah, and the other thing with the interesting thing here is the amount of names out that are head coaches right now and that have yet to have been hired. So Craig Berube is out there, Dean Evison is out there. There's a few people out there that it wouldn't surprise me if I think that coaching changes happen sooner rather than later. And you wonder if people have been waiting, and you wonder if a guy like I just wonder if Craig Berube has been waiting and saying, okay, what's going to happen in Toronto? That might be who ends up there.
It's going to be quite the offseason.
I do think if yeah, I would say, Kev, I think you talked about the how interesting the Kings offseason is going to be. I think even take out the fact that Toronto's the center of the universe. I think that's even more interesting in my opinion, because I think I don't know if we're going to see much in the way of roster movement out of LA. I think you're going to see a coach. I don't think Hillier is coming back for LA, and I think, but I do think that we're going to see a coaching change in Toronto. I think we're going to see it. We're going to see at least one other big move, as well. So I think that for me the biggest right now, the biggest and most interesting off-season for story team wise is the Leafs.
Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to mention with the Leafs offseason is that there is a new president at MLSE now, Keith Pelly, and I don't know, that's got to make Brendan Shanahan's job security less, or at least more in question. And if there's a change there, then anything's possible, right? It's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, I don't know how they can sell the so-called Shanna plan to Leaf fans anymore, right? So there could be some pretty big changes in the upper levels of the organization in this offseason.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I agree. And the Leafs are the Dallas Cowboys of the National Hockey League. They demand our attention. They don't do anything. It's the same as the Cowboys. They demand our attention. They don't do anything. But I think that there's some Leaf fans that are just really tired of first round after first round after, like, there's been no playoff success in about 22 years. They really haven't had any playoff success. And, I think that there's a section of this fan base that's getting really tired of this. So, be interesting. What else is lots of the awards have come out here, or some of the award nominations have come out, which includes Quinn Hughes for the Norris, Rick Tocchet for the Jack Adams, against Andrew Burnett as well. What else did we have here? We had Selke come out.
The Lady Bing.
What were the lady? They didn't see the Lady Bing nominees yet. Who were they?
Lady Bing was Pedersen, Slavin, and oh crap, who was the other one?
Austin Matthews.
Was Austin? Yeah, Austin Matthews for the Bing as well. Yeah.
Yep. So Matthews got a nomination for the Bing and the Selke. So interesting. And the Selke nominees were Barkov, Matthews, and who was the other one?
Jordan Stahl.
That's a weird one, considering all the numbers.
No, he's been. He had a good season, and he's good defensively, right? I think he was actually pretty stellar defensively this year.
Yeah, that's Barkov's to lose, and I see. And the Vezina came out. I think the most of these are pretty clear cut. Hughes for the Norris, Tocchet for the Adams. Hellebuck gets the Vezina. Barkov gets the Selke. And then I would imagine that Matthews is going to get the Lady Byng. Although I think it's fascinating that a defenseman gets it, but I think Matthews is going to get the Lady Byng. Yeah. Anyway.
I think Slavin's won it a couple times.
Yeah, he has. But it's hard to, I feel like a lot of people are going to, it's hard to ignore 70 goals, and he may be the odd man out of the three in the MVP. I'm talking about Matthews.
Yeah.
So I think that's what could happen there. Still one other series left. And in my opinion, I know that the attention has been Toronto-Boston, but Vegas-Dallas has been phenomenal hockey. I know, yes, Mark Spector, it has been scoreless for 2 periods, but it's still a damn good hockey series. And I've loved this series. It's been phenomenal hockey for both of these teams. Jake Hottinger has returned to 2022 form. Noah Hannafin has been amazing in this series for Vegas. Jack Eichel has been clutch in this series as well. We've been introduced to Wyatt Johnson, who, talk about another amazing draft pick from the Dallas Stars. They traded up to get this guy, or they traded around to get this guy. He's been amazing. Jamie Benn has been the physicality in the series has been amazing. I still think Dallas is going to win the series. Chris Tanev again taking pucks off face again, doing Chris Tanev things. This has been by far was this the best series to me.
That was that 5 second sequence where Braden McNabb destroyed Logan Stankoven and then literally got destroyed by Jamie Benn.
Yeah,
that was awesome. That's playoff hockey right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't even have to drop the gloves. They got physical and just moved on. Right. So, but Pete DeBoer has never lost a game 7. So I think that's going to be fascinating to see. And then should touch on this. Canada wins gold at the U18. Gavin McKenna, Tej Aginla, who Calgary Flame fans are salivating at drafting.
Yes.
Salivating at drafting for some reason. I don't know with that last name. I have no idea why. But,
yeah, no kidding.
But we should give them a congratulations as well. And should we
just quick note on schedule for the second round. The Eastern Conference series have been announced. So obviously today they're already into the Hurricanes and the Rangers. Tomorrow is the start of the Boston-Florida series. Sounds like Canucks and Oilers begins on Tuesday. That's most of the reporting out there. But I guess the outcome of this Vegas-Dallas series and then the building availability that goes with whoever advances is going to dictate both of the Western Conference series. But we should know that pretty soon this evening.
Yeah, so I think if Vegas beats Colorado, Colorado's building is not available Tuesday, so they will start Wednesday. But I think if it's Colorado, Dallas, I think that series ends up starting Wednesday in Vancouver. Edmonton starts Tuesday.
Yeah,
is what I have been led to understand. So,
yeah, I know. I think what John Shannon posted that Canucks Oilers will start Tuesday, but yeah, I've seen other contradictory, similar to what you said there, Kev. A lot depends on what who gets through.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, with the scheduling is always mostly based around how does it work for ESPN and for Turner Sports in the U.S. with their basketball playoff coverage, and then they have to have like a certain number of games and time slots, arena availability. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, it's Sportsnet just basically does what they're told when it comes to that. So, we'll find out.
There will be a lot of arguing between Oilers and Canucks fans on social media, but there will be one thing that everyone will agree on. The times of these games will be too late for both fan bases. I think. Yeah. Should we end this off doing the draft simulator?
No. No,
No.
we're past that. The
No.
Canucks are into the second round. We're not doing draft
Oh,
lottery simulator machines. Okay, don't get Sean going on that.
Fine.
You thought it would be-
Don't need that right now. I'm excited for Tuesday. I'm on personally. I really hope it's a Tuesday start because they can go Tuesday, Thursday in Vancouver. It's not a bad trip between the two cities. So you could have a Saturday game. You could have Canucks Oilers Saturday nights, round 2 of the playoffs.
Oh,
Please, I like even if you start Wednesday. Like maybe take that extra day and do it on a Saturday. I don't care. I want this game I want a game on a Saturday between these two teams.
That was one of the misses of the old Battle of Alberta 2022 is they didn't have a Saturday night game. They did a Sunday night game instead.
yeah, and I think in terms of TV, right? Like if you put that in that 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern time slot there on a Saturday, that works for US TV. You get some kind of Eastern Conference game before it. CBC gets a doubleheader. Everybody's happy with that. It makes so much sense.
You could even bump it up half an hour, like have it would be a 7:30 Mountain start, like just it would be just you know that you'd have a good chunk of Eastern Canada staying up to watch that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It is going to be a lot of fun. And so we are looking forward to that. We will be back next week to talk about our feelings, how we're feeling about the things.
Yeah. It's one of these things where it's like it's not really hit until the anthem's going before game one. One anthem scenario too. Once that's happening.
That's right. One anthem series.
One anthem series. It's once all the pregame pomp and circumstance there at U2 and everything for game one, it's that's when it'll really start to, that anxiety will come back.
I know we had a lot of talk about what the Canucks should do. I was wrong. Just the U2 chills every time they do it. It gets me amped.
Yeah, that was electric. That was absolutely electric for sure. Okay, how do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canuck 03. Also, before we go, I do want to say thanks, Chris, for showing up in the chat and giving Dylan some company, as well as Casey as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah, thanks for all the chats, all of that. So how do we follow everyone?
Yeah, at Bearded Canuck 03 on the Twitter or X app or whatever you want to call it.
I'm on x.com at tnoble, TNOBLE.
Chris, you can find at Schneidz, SCHNEIDZ, Devin Gordhouse 09. I am KEVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.